In today's class, we are going to discuss here the topic of the cranial nerves. In this session, we are going to give here a quick overview of this topic, in which we will try to understand the basics of the cranial nerves, where from they emerge, what components are the functional components they carry, because you see that if you will compare them with the spinal nerves, the similarity is that they are a part of the peripheral nervous system, just like spinal nerves. And there are 12 pairs against the spinal nerves, which are 31 pairs. You see that again. You have seen previously also the central nervous system is comprised of consists of the brain, which has got the forebrain here. We have the midbrain, and then we have the hindbrain, that is the pons and the medulla oblongata, and behind the pons obviously the cerebellum also. This is the hindbrain, and then is the spinal cord. This is a sketch of the central nervous system developing from the neural tube. But if you would actually look at this, you see this central nervous system that is actually enclosed within the cranial cavity if the brain is concerned, and the vertebral canal or the spine as far the spinal cord is concerned. It is attached with the peripheral, I say it is attached with the peripheral nervous system, that is called the nerves. If the nerves are attached here to the spinal cord, you call them spinal nerves, and there are 31 pairs of spinal nerves. You see that we have got here 8 cervical nerves, we have 12 thoracic, we have 5 lumbar, we have 5 sacral, and we have 1 coccygeal. So in all we have 31 pairs of the spinal nerves. You see, identically you see that this similarity is that we have also the brain portion, which is also attached with here. This time not 31, obviously we have got 12 pairs of these nerves, and we call them the cranial nerves. And if these cranial nerves are attached here, you can say the cranial nerves are attached to the surface of the brain in such a way that the 2 nerves are attached here to the forebrain. This is the first and second, and then the next 2 nerves, or you can say next 10 nerves are attached to the brain stem. Brain stem, you know already, it is the midbrain full, and hindbrains pons and medulla oblongata minus cerebellum. All these 3 components, in which the total midbrain and hindbrains, out of 3 components, the 2 components will in fact will merge. You see that in a straight line, you see that at 180 degree, all these 3 components are in fact in continuity with each other. You call them the brain stem, because it is holding the brain. You see the forebrains, bigger portion of forebrain is holding it, just like a stem of the tree. You call it the brain stem. And in that brain stem, now the next all 10 cranial nerves will emerge from the brain stem in such a way that the midbrain, it will give rise to 2 next nerves, 3rd, 4th. Pons upper portion, next nerve, 5th. Lower portion of pons, next 3 nerves in continuity, it will be 6, 7 and 8. Upper medulla, 3 again in continuity, 9, 10 and 11. And lower medulla, you see even upper medulla also, but little bit away from the previous 3, is the last nerve, that is called the 12th nerve. So we have in fact 12 cranial nerves, 12 pairs of cranial nerves. We will do only one side. 12 pairs of cranial nerves that in fact will emerge from the surface of the brain. 2 from forebrain, the first and second, 2 from midbrain, I say obviously all the remaining 10 from the brain stem, or out of this the next 2, that is the 3rd and 4th, from the midbrain, and then from 4 from the pons and 4 from medulla oblongata, in such a way that if you will actually be watching like this, so that means if you are actually discussing your the next 4 cranial nerves, means it will be, for example, 5, 6, 7, 8, you can say it will be like this. Means the 5th will be away from the set of the 3. So you can say, sir, okay, upper pons is the 5th, then 6th, 7th and 8th. This is from the lower pons. And when you coming to the medulla oblongata, again there will be 4, but this time this 4 will be like reverse. Here will be 9, 10, 11, after a gap you will be 12. So it will be actually from pons and medulla oblongata 4 but they are actually mirror image, you can say, in arrangement here. Fifth will be away from the next, this is 6th, 7th, 8th. Then in the medulla oblongata 9th, 10th, 11th are combined, you see that at one place from one landmark, and after a gap there will be the 12th. So that means these are all cranial nerves, these in fact will emerge from them. And you see that they have the similarity with the spinal cord, you see that is with the spinal nerves. They are similar, they are part of the peripheral nervous system. Okay, they are attached here, spinal nerves, they are attached here to the surface of your spinal cord. Okay, similarly they are attached here to the surface of the brainstem, except the first and second, which are actually considered as non-classic nerves, you can say. Because these two nerves, especially this first and second, this first means it is the olfactory nerve, and the second, that is called the optic nerve. These two nerves basically are different from all the nerves, not just different from the cranial nerves. I say not just different from the spinal nerves, they are different from the cranial nerves also. In a way that because they are similarity, okay, same. They are the part of the peripheral nervous system, this is true. But you see that if the part of this peripheral nervous system, but the peripheral nervous system nerves, if they are myelinated, they must be having their myelin sheath developing from the Schwann cells. But here in this case, especially in the optic nerve, its myelin sheath is not developing from the Schwann cells, but its myelin sheath is developing from the oligodendroglial cells, oligodendrocytes here. And oligodendrocytes, they are giving the myelin sheath only in form of the axon bundles running within central nervous system, either spinal cord or the brain, means the tracts. Tracts are myelinated by the oligodendroglial cells, not the nerves. Here the optic nerve is myelinated by not the Schwann cells but the oligodendroglial cells. This indicates that the optic nerve basically it is a part of the central nervous system. It is not a peripheral nervous system as such developmentally, if you see that. It is an extension of the brain basically. It is the optic nerve is the way to contribute in a nervous point of view in the synthesis of or in the development of the eyeball. Retina has been in fact offered like a gift from the brain to the eyeball. And with the gift from the brain to the eyeball, so that means inner coat of the eyeball or the retina of the eyeball has been in fact offered from not the mesenchymal structures and other things here, but the brain. The brain itself has actually come outside, it has shared a part of its own substance in fact into the center of the eyeball here. Such an importance the eyeball has. Not only this, but the remaining nerves, when you are actually looking at remaining 11 nerves after the optic nerve, you see that. So that means it is not just the retina which in fact is transducing the stimuli into the impulses. These impulses will travel along that extension of the brain, because the extension of the brain as a result of, you see, the extension of brain will give rise to the retina that has gone into the center of I say inside of the eyeball here. But this is in connection with the brain, obviously it has come from brain. So pathway is there, and that pathway is called the optic nerve. Basically this is a pathway, it is a tract, but we don't call it a tract even. Though its initial portion, you see that its distal portion is called the nerve, but later on you see that proximal portion will be called as tract, but still it is a nerve. And it is a nerve, functionally it is a tract, and very much you see but conventionally we call it as a nerve, and if it is a tract it must be myelinated by the oligodendroglial cells. Here is the optic nerve having myelination coming from the oligodendroglial cells, this is true. But you see that it is the nerve, and olfactory nerve, if you see the olfactory nerve fibers, they are unmyelinated. But if for example, had they been myelinated, probably they would have been myelinated by again the oligodendroglial cells, because they are also the extensions coming from the brain. So these are in fact something you are actually watching in this. Now another dissimilarity, you see that difference between the spinal nerves and the cranial nerves are that when you actually pick up any spinal nerve, you see you just take one typical spinal nerve and you will study that. One typical nerve, you see that. And you study this spinal nerve, typical spinal nerve. What do you mean by typical spinal nerve? The thing here is that when you are actually picking up this nerve, any typical spinal nerve, we find out here that this typical spinal nerve has its attachment obviously to the spinal cord. Actually this is spinal nerve which is in fact emerging from the spinal cord any segment of spinal cord has its connections with the gray matter obviously, has its motor root, has a cell body lying in the gray matter of spinal cord in the motor horn, that is called the anterior horn. Its root is in fact coming out, the axon bundle is called the root here, motor root. Has its sensory root not having the cell body inside the central nervous system in posterior horn, but it has the cell body present here outside in the intervertebral foramen in form of the ganglion, that is called the dorsal root ganglion, or we can call it the sensory root ganglion also. And we have already told you many times, the sensory root ganglion, this is actually having a cell body of the sensory neuron, which will in fact take the transduced impulse for the first time. You see that this will take the transduced impulse for the first time, means it will take, it's the first, this is the first order neuron you call it. It is always a sensory neurons, this is called the first order neuron also. First order neuron of any sensory modalities, any sensory modality, first order neuron, except the special senses. Special senses means not all special five senses. You say all special senses having specific or specially designed, you say that specific nerve, which have got their special nerve for this purpose. Special senses having their special nerves have their first order neurons always bipolar. So this will be bipolar, you see that effect. But here remaining everything means all general senses first order neurons plus the first order neurons of those special senses which do not have their special nerves for this purpose. There is one special sense only which does not have its specific nerve, and that is the test. Remaining all 4 out of the 5 special senses, they have got their special nerves. And we have 5 special senses we have already seen here. It is called the smell, vision, hearing, balancing. Smell, we say olfaction, vision, we say the optics, hearing is called the cochlear, and the balancing, that is called the vestibular. All these 4 functions have got 4 nerves, you can say. But because the vestibular and cochlear, they both are in fact the components of the same nerve, that is why numerically we will call them not 4 but the 3 nerves. So that means out of 4 senses we have actually 3 nerves. And I will tell you that if the special senses have got these 3 specific nerves, special nerves, which in fact will carry the special senses from these organs, like the smell from the nose, from the top of the nose, you see that from the roof of the nose, the smell, the chemicals will touch them through the air and will touch them, and transduction will take place here, because these stimuli will in fact transduce, those receptors will be present there, the olfactory receptors will be present there, and you see that they will transduce the impulses, I say transduce the stimuli into the impulses, then these impulses will be carried by the nerves, and that nerve will be called as the olfactory nerve. You see all these special senses, and similarly you see that light rays, they will enter here into the eyeball and will strike the retina, passing through various media, we see they strike the retina, and here the image will be formed here, and that image in fact when they strike the retina, you see that over the retina there are receptors. These receptors will transduce these impulses, I said these stimuli into the impulses, and impulses will be picked by very special nerve here. Similarly, like just like your smell, and these special nerves will in fact will be doing nothing at all except the function for which they have been actually designed to be, in fact has been instituted there, has been appointed there to do only this function, and this function is the sensory, and this function is the sensory. They will just doing actually this sensory function only. This sensory function means this is the function of the smell, the function of the vision, and here in the ears, you see the sound wave will strike your external ear, they will come into the middle and they will be transferred here into the inner ear, and the inner ear have the receptors, and these receptors are stimulated, the stimulus converted into an impulse, impulses will be carried by the nerves, first order neuron obviously. And first order neurons here, this will be, and similarly it is the vestibular also, head movement here, you see that in the ear the fluid will move, the receptors will move, the stimuli of this head movement, stimuli in fact will be converted into impulses, impulses will be carried by the first order neuron of this nerve, you see it is called the vestibular nerve. This will leave the ear and will enter into the brain and will inform the brain. This is the work of the nerve. Work of the nerve is to carry these impulses. You see that they have to be hand over them to the central nervous system. In the spinal nerves to the spinal cord, to the cranial nerves to the brain stem. Obviously, the first and second to the forebrain directly. And if they are actually doing here, so these nerves in fact are, and these 4 sensory modalities mediated by 3 nerves. One of these nerves has the 2 components, because you see that. Because they are related to the special senses. So these nerves, in fact, all these 4 nerves, this time you see numerically 3 nerves, they will do just the function, only that function, only that function. They will be having only that function, that will be the function of the sensation. The sensory impulses carrying the sensory impulses. So these nerves will have no other function at all, no other function at all. No other function means no other sensory function even except this, let alone the motor. Motor never, even other sensory also not present, just this only. So you can imagine that such nerves in fact will be the purely sensory nerves. And usually sometimes you see that use the phrase very purely sensory nerves. Purely sensory means those who have got only the sensory modalities to be carried. But even if they have the special sense and a general sense, we will not call them mixed nerve, still we will call them sensory nerves. But these nerves will never carry any other sensation also. No other special, smell cannot actually have the vision, even smell cannot have the pain, touch, temperature also. I say olfactory nerve will not have a pain, touch and temperature also. Had this nerve carried this pain, touch and temperature, still I will call it purely sensory nerve, because it is carrying sensory modalities only. General as well as special, but these special nerves will never carry the general. That's why sometimes we call them even in informal phrase here, that is called very purely sensory nerves here, but you call them purely sensory nerves. And this is something, some speciality you see that in your cranial nerves, that the cranial nerves, just like your typical spinal nerves, they do not have just you say motor, and we have got the sensory. Sensory is the first order neuron, it is a pseudo-unipolar, and pseudo-unipolar has got the peripheral axon and the central axon. Central axon enters here into the dorsal horn or the posterior horn of the grammator of spinal cord, where second order neuron is waiting, where they will actually hand over, mostly you say hand over their signals to them, so that the second order neurons axons in fact will ascend here in form of tracks to inform the brain. And then with the running here second order neurons, so surely within the spinal cord, within central nervous system, you call them the tracks. And with the other tracks, their myelin sheath in fact will be composed of, I say, they will develop from the oligodendroglial cells. But outside here you see that these roots and everything, their myelin sheath must be the Schwann cells, which you know that is coming from the neural crest cells. So these sensory and motor roots you see within the intervertebral foramen, these will join together. In the intervertebral foramen, they will join together. Within the intervertebral foramen, actually intervertebral foramen, this will be the intervertebral foramen. Within the intervertebral foramen is lying your dorsal root ganglion also. And outside the mixed nerve is actually coming. After the mixed nerve is coming, which will have the motor and the sensory roots fibers also. This time we will not call the roots any longer here. So we can say we have sensory and motor roots, combined fibers within your mixed nerve here. And when the nerve comes here, you know that nerve emerges here out of the intervertebral foramen. From this corresponding intervertebral foramen will have actually a part running posteriorly, because it has to immediately divide into the 2 rami, the posterior primary ramus and the anterior primary ramus. You see that's the posterior primary ramus, which will have a share of its motor, share of its sensory fibers. So you see that the sensory fibers will go, small posterior ramus will be there, which supplies the dorsal power body wall, and a big anterior ramus will be there, which will have its own share of sensory and motor fibers, very long. And very long means it is running from cervical, thoracic, lumbar, sacral here. And if for example you are watching these nerves, for example, you see this watching these very long nerves, you see that little lady. So because they are actually covering your lateral as well as anterior aspect. So if from your lateral aspect, if any organ emerges here, just like your limbs, so the limbs will be, in fact, this is the responsibility of the anterior rami to supply the limbs. They are anterior rami, even your anterior and posterior aspects of your limbs, upper limb and the lower limb, they must be supplied by anterior rami, because posterior rami can never enter into the limbs. This is not our topic today. We are actually going here into our cranial nerves, and we have told you that this is a typical spinal nerve. So we are expecting that our cranial nerves must be like this also. Actually, our cranial nerves are to some extent like this, but they are not all like here. Because all your spinal nerves must be the mixed nerves. We have the sensory and motor roots, where the anterior, posterior, etc. have the sensory and motor root at least. They are mixed. But here, we don't have all the nerves which are actually mixed. Because here every group of nerves, you see that every nerve has its own you say demands, you say their own implications. They have their own responsibilities, and according to they have been designed, according to their composition is there. If the nerve is actually going here to the eyeball, where it will actually carry the signals of the vision, or the visual signals it will actually carry, this nerve's composition will be totally different from the olfactory. And it will have just the, obviously it is a sensation, sensory modality, so that will be carry just the senses only, sensory impulses, you say, sensory stimuli, not the motor at all. So motor fibers will not be present in the optic, and because it is carrying just the vision only from the retina, that means it will not have actually any fibers related to the general senses also. So it is having just purely, I say very purely, so it will be sensory, but it will be very purely sensory. You call them purely sensory, just word is formal word is this, purely sensory. So that means when you are actually going into the spinal, I say into the typical spinal nerve, just one nerve you do in 31 pairs, it is done. But when you are coming here to the cranial nerves here, each nerve has to be actually taken separately. Separately means each nerve, you will not actually discuss each nerve separately, you must have a clear concept about how these nerves have been actually designed. At least you can divide them into the three groups now. One is the purely sensory. You will students actually claim it is the 1 to 8. But why 1 to 8 has been actually given the purely sensory component responsibility? You see, that means we told you that here they are called purely sensory, purely motor, and the mixed nerves here. You see how we divide them in these three components, on what basis? Because this basis in fact is the foundation, the basis in fact is important. If you remember the basis, the numbers of the nerves will be very easy for you. Like for example, number one group we told you that is called the purely sensory. We sometimes call them very purely sensory, but very purely sensory is not a phrase, we call them purely sensory. Purely sensory cranial nerves. Which nerves are purely sensory cranial nerves and why? Actually nature has otherwise the nerves already you know that, you compare it with the spinal nerves. Nerves are what? Having the sensory fibers, whereas the motor fibers they will actually go and supply sensory motor both. Because in one bus or one vehicle, the girls will be there and the boys will be there. Why for the boys with the girls will be points will be separate? So they actually use one, because the boys and girls actually they are totally 30 for example. There 15 are the, for example 20 are the boys and 10 are the girls. Why for the 10 new bus and the separate bus will run? Nature will actually give the same bus and all 30 will actually sit in the same, because destination is same. Here purely sensory nerves, why we actually say just purely sensory nerves? The reason is that because they are purely sensory nerves are those nerves which will supply, which will carry, or you can say which will supply sensory modalities, which will actually subserve sensory modalities of the special senses. That's why they are purely sensory, because they are the special senses. That's why the nerves are special. Special in what sense? Special in the sense that they will not carry any motor fiber. They will just carry sensory fibers. And they are so special that they will carry only one type of a sensory modality. Because they are special senses, and special senses will not carry, or we say not subserve two senses at one time. Nose is not actually doing the smell and the vision both. Or the eyes will actually do the vision and smell both, or vision and hearing both together. No, eyes are, or the ears are doing only the sensory modality. Though I say hearing, along with that we have the device inside also, that is the vestibular, but you divide them into the two components. Area is same, okay, but you see the components are two. So there are two components here, two compartments inside here, vestibular separate, cochlear separate. That's why the two components are emerging from them, so the nerves are separate. Actually these are two nerves. They run together, we call them a single nerve anatomically, but they are totally separate nerves. Hearing has nothing to do with, I say almost nothing to do with the balancing. Though hearing has little to do with the balancing, but it is called hearing has nothing to do with the balancing. Balancing, you see that balancing vestibular nerves destination finally will be to the cerebellum, but the hearing nerves final destination is to the cerebrum. Even their destinations here and terminations are not common. Even their informing, you see that whatever sensory modalities in fact are carried from the surface, they are handed over to the central nervous system, just like you see that. The first order neuron has actually having a handing over all these signals here to the second order neuron within the central nervous system in form of a cell body collections, you call them the nuclei. Vestibular nuclei are separate, cochlear nuclei are separate. And now the cochlear nuclei and the vestibular nuclei, when they will give the second order neurons in form of tracts, the vestibular nuclei tracts will go to the cerebellum and the cochlear nuclei will go to the cerebellum, I say cerebrum, via thalamus, because all the sensory modalities first will report the thalamus and then thalamus will hand over them through the third order neuron to the cerebral cortex. Nothing can go to the, no signals can reach the cerebrum directly without reporting the thalamus. This will be actually filtered and regulated and modulated by the thalamus, and then it will be actually handing over to the cerebral cortex, except smell. Smell goes to the thalamus as it goes to the cerebral cortex, a specific area of smell directly. Though it has the connection with the thalamus also, but without thalamus it can report directly to the cerebrum also. Now, if for example you are watching here, so we told you that it is called a purely sensory nerve. So, if you remember purely sensory nerve, do not call the 1 to 8, you call them. These are those nerves which are in fact subserving, which are giving service to the special organs which are for the special senses. And special organs for special senses, because we have 5 senses, so we should have 5 nerves. Actually, all senses except taste. Taste does not have a specific, I say special or purely sensory nerve. Taste does not have purely sensory nerve. So, what the taste will have? A purely motor nerve. Obviously, taste will not be carried by the purely motor nerve. So, surely it will be the mixed nerve, because mixed have the motor and sensory both, and on these mixed nerves which will in fact convey our taste signals over the mixed nerve. So, mixed nerve is actually having a lot of functions including taste also. So, this 5th sense that is actually called the taste will not have any special sensory nerve. So, it will not have any purely sensory nerve. So, how many special senses will have purely sensory nerves? 4 special senses will have purely sensory nerves. So, we should have 4 special nerves, obviously 4 purely sensory nerves. No, we have 3 numerically anatomical point of view. One nerve that is called from the nose, one nerve from nose which will carry only one type of a sense, that is the smell, olfaction. That is why this nerve's name is the olfactory nerve. The olfactory nerve, you know that is the nose is 1, so the number of this nerve is 1 also. Nose is 1, but is actually having 2 nasal cavities, and 2 nerves means to have actually a pair of nerves, but you see that just for remembering number of the nerve, olfaction, you see nose is 1, number of the nerve is 1, it is called the cranial nerve number 1, and that is the purely sensory. Why? Special sense, because it is special sensory, it means all special sensory nerves, all nerves which will carry special senses from the special sensory organs except taste, they are purely sensory. Like the first nerve that is called the cranial number 1 is called the first nerve, and this cranial number CN1, you say that is called the CN1, this is called olfactory nerve. Purely sensory, very purely sensory. Come back here, see, eyes are 2, number of the nerves is also 2. This is called the optic because it is actually carrying the vision from the retina. Receptors are rods and cones, transduction will be there. Second nerve is the optic nerve. Why optic? Because eyes are 2, so nerves relate to the special senses of the eye, vision from the retina, from rods and cones. Because if the light rays in fact strike the retina, rods and cones in fact will be stimulated. Transduce the impulses, stimuli into the impulses are carried by the nerve. Nerve is required obviously because current has to be carried here from generator through the wire. Wire is required, wire's name is optic nerve. Optic nerve carry only one type of a sensory modality, that is the vision. Means vision means no other sensory modality at all, let alone motor. Motor never, even other sensory not also there. Just one sensory, that is called the vision, and vision means it is the optic nerve, and optic nerve means the second cranial nerve. Second cranial nerve which must be purely sensory, can call it very purely sensory. This will be the second nerve, that is another sensory nerve, that is purely sensory. This is called the optic nerve. Second purely sensory nerve is this, because it is specialized for the special organs, for the special senses. and they will just do that function only. Though there are pain, touch, temperature, etc. in the eye also, but that will be carried by a certain other nerve, not this nerve, because this nerve is not just purely sensory. This is very purely sensory. And when you bring here the hearing and the vestibular action, then another group of nerve another nerve is required here. These are the two components. One is called the cochlear, another called the vestibular. R1 is called the vestibular, another called the cochlear. That's why this nerve is called vestibulocochlear nerve. And we told you that how these sensory modalities in fact will reach there. Stimuli are hearing sound waves for the cochlear, and stimuli are head movement for the vestibular receptors. Stimuli are transduced into impulses, the impulses will be carried by these specific nerves. If they are hearing, then the cochlear; if they are vestibular, then the vestibular component. So that means this nerve, which you know that is called the nerve, so we say that we don't have 8 ears, so we call this 8th nerve. Actually, if you remember here, if you draw a diagram like this, 2 eyes here, 2 ears, you can do the ears like this. You make this your 8th nerve. This is what we call here. Actually, in the beginning, I am just giving you like a fun, so that you will in fact after some while you see that when you will actually discussing with your friends and all these things, you will have these things on tips. This is what we call here the 8th nerve, and 8th nerve I told you that is called a vestibulocochlear nerve. So this is called the vestibulocochlear nerve. So vestibulocochlear nerve, now these are 3 nerves which are purely sensory nerves. In the entire universe you see that you don't have any other nerve except these 3 which are purely sensory. You don't have 4th nerve at all on the planet, you can say, which has this sensory, purely sensory. They are purely sensory. And your entire spinal nerves, no. Reason, because all are the mixed. In other 12, you see that 12 cranial nerves, 3 we are actually discussing, other 9, no. Either they will be motor, or they will be mixed, or maybe they are additional, you can say, additionally discussed, you can say. They can be additionally discussed, you say, additional nerves, you see that. You can call them even sometimes accessory nerve. Accessory is at least I don't put them into these 3 groups like sensory, motor, purely sensory, purely motor and mixed. I actually put this into another group here, which is the group of this accessory nerve, an additional nerves group, you can say. Additional nerves, we don't have too many of them, we have just one. Additional, you can say. That's why its name is additional, we say accessory. But all the books usually put them in fact in the purely motor now, though she is also purely motor, but I usually put it into another group here. So this is what we see, that is called the purely sensory cranial nerves, 1, 2 and 3, you said the 1, 2 and 8, 1, 2 and 8. Why 1, 2 and 8? You will not actually cram it 1, 2 and 8. You say that these are the nerves which are subserving your special sensory organs, for the special senses only. So for the nose, olfactory, for this, and olfactory is number 1 because nose is 1. Olfactory means vision is 2, because eyes are 2, so optic will be the number, from number point of view, it is the second cranial nerve. Ears, they are not 8, because you 8 figure of, you see that 8 you can make with the 2 ears, so it is the vestibulocochlear nerve for these purposes here. But the test, I told you that this only test which is in fact not having a purely sensory nerve for this purpose, for the test here. Because tongue is very big. For one big tongue we cannot actually offer one nerve, otherwise maybe the nature would have actually put one nerve inside, because tongue is very big. At the different parts of the tongue we need actually different nerves. That's why we cannot actually allocate 2 to 3 nerves to the tongue. Already we have sacrificed 3 nerves and 3 more now for the tongue test only. So almost half the nerves will be for the special senses. So the test is very big, and from the tongue another thing will be probably why nature has not actually given the special say purely sensory nerve to the tongue, because the tongue is not specific for the test. Nose is almost specific for the test. Say for the smell, because we can't smell except nose. Vision is you see already specific for this vision is the ears. We can't say is the eyes. We can't actually see without eyes. and we can't hear without the ears, and vestibular almost not possible without ears. So, we have specific organs for that. That is why the nerves in fact are the specific for this purpose. But for the test, you see that tongue has been selected for the test, and tongue has another very important motor function also, which is the generation or the synthesis of the words, or converting the sound or the voice into the words. Though little bit can be actually made through our lips also, and with the assistance of the lower jaw as well, but the primary function, I say, of the speech, major function is being done here by the tongue. So, tongue is actually a very big and highly controlled motor organ also. Probably motor function is more liked by nature. Actually, nature, she say that the biggest gift from God to the human being is the speech, not the taste. So, tongue is in fact famous for speech, not for the taste just. For many people it will be taste, okay, but speech is in fact more sacred than even the taste is. So, speech is something you see, that is the motor function. That is why the tongue in fact receives a nerve, that is the motor also. So, tongue has not a specific organ for the taste. That is why the taste purpose, we in fact in the nature has put here some mixed nerves rather than specific nerves. That is why the tongue does not have the purely sensory nerve. That is why 4 nerves are purely sensory, numerically 3, because vestibular cochlear is a single, counted as a single nerve. So, these are actually the purely sensory nerves. Come back and see who are the purely motor nerves and why. This is the main thing. Who are purely motor nerves, we can actually give it 3, 4, 6, 12, okay, go home, we can solve our MCQ. No, we should know that why they are purely motor, why the nature has actually designed them being purely motor only. Why not actually putting on them, you say, putting on them some sensory fibers also. Nerves can carry, okay, and the one bus, okay, girls and boys both can sit. Why the, you see, why the girls are not allowed to sit in that point here, though the seats are there maybe. Why not they are allowed actually to do this function? Because these nerves, we will tell you that purely motor nerves, what quality they have, that is why they are purely motor. That is why they have been actually designed like this. You see here the purely motor nerves, and see which nerves can be purely motor. When we will actually be knowing that why they have been, why the nerves are in fact designed to be purely motor, their numbers will be on our fingertips here. When you will know them, see like purely motor nerves, and this time purely motor nerves. Purely motor. Motor for what? Motor for the motor activity. Motor activity means you already know the motor activity, which is in fact here over what? Over skeletal muscle. Motor order, you see, moving the muscle, yes, moving something means 4 things are to be moved: smooth muscle, cardiac, and exocrine glands. This time the glands. You see, sir, how the glands can be moved. Actually, when the glands are ordered, they start secreting something. This is called the secretion. Secretion is also the motion. That is why we call them secretomotor fibers. It is not just mechanically moving something here. It is in fact something you are asking them to secrete something. This is also called the motor activity. And out of this, these 3 activities, you know that is involuntary, but this is voluntary. And which activity is under your control? Obviously skeletal. Under the control, this is the skilled activity. At least the nature has provided you these purely motor nerves, not for the involuntary activity obviously. Involuntary activity, they are not under your control. For the specific nerves will be formed for them. Specific nerves for purely motor nerves must be formed, must be designed for those muscles which are highly controlled. Control means under your control, means must be voluntary. And out of these voluntary muscles, remember, in the head region or in the neck also, okay, In the head and neck region, these skeletal or the voluntary muscles can be divided into two groups, which you have already divided in our previous lecture about the muscles and triangles probably, I think. So, in this also, skeletal muscles, you can divide them into two groups here. Highly skilled, less skilled. Okay, less skilled and highly skilled means highly skilled. And here less skilled. Focus on them. We don't have these two groups. We don't have a third group here in your head and neck, especially head. Highly skilled and less skilled. As far the highly skilled are concerned, focus on the highly skilled, because these muscles, in fact, the purely motor nerves, in fact, they have been designed to innervate the highly skilled muscles. You see that we have less skilled also? Yes, we have also. These are those muscles which are under our control, but they are not doing a highly skilled action, you can say. Like less skilled action is like monotonous action, you see that. You can open and close, you can stretch hardly, or you can do just adduction, abduction. You see less skilled activity, but this is under your control obviously. Number one, you see less skilled if I am telling you. Number one, you can move your lower jaw so that you can bite or you can masticate or you can chew. These muscles are called the muscles of mastication. First group, which in fact, first group which is the less skilled group, you can say. First group, you say number one, muscles of mastication. I am writing it's MM, okay. Number two, this is a big group also. Number two, the muscles of your face. You see the face are less skilled obviously, because the face is doing what? On the face, what you can do? You can't write or you cannot do anything, except you open your mouth, you shut your mouth. You open your eyelids, you shut your eyelids. You drop your upper eyelid, this and that you can do. What you do? You just dilate your nostrils here, you compress sometimes, you can't even close. You sometimes you see that ear auricles, you can't even move, but your auricles in other vertebrates, you see that you can be moved also. Little bit okay. But here we don't move here, because if we want to actually look back here, we can turn our head here like this here, but most of the animals they can't. That's why they actually move their auricles only. They have the muscles and we have also the muscles and the auricles. But we don't actually take any function at all, let alone some skilled activity, we don't take any activity from them. So these are the less skilled muscles, we call them muscles of facial expression. We call them facial expression. You can imagine that even if we call them, they are not doing any activity, even they are doing some expression on the face, but their expression on making or bringing expression on the face is their side effect. Their primary action is to actually move the organs, you see organs which are guarding the vital viscera inside here. Organs means the eyelids, moving the eyelids. And inside the eyeball, because these eyelids are actually covering the eyeballs here. Inside your mouth, we have got the tongue, everything, but these are being closed here, are being shut here by the lips. Inside we have nasal cavity, we have nostrils, but nostrils we can't close because we can't afford closing of nostrils. Respiration is a continuous process. And here the auricles, because they are guarding the ears, we even can't shut your ears. The thing is that why we can't shut the ears? When we are sleeping, okay, the ears should be shut here, just like eyelids and lips. Actually, when all your special senses and all your general senses are almost sleeping, nature keeps the ears open at least. That's why the ears cannot be 100%, it cannot be shut, can never be shut here. Sounds actually striking your auricles all the time, just like your respiration. So that at least in the time of emergency, when there is explosion or anything, because your eyes are closed, everything is actually, you are sleeping, you are almost dead, except you are breathing. So if for example you are sleeping, so ears should remain closed, remain open, so that the sound can come, in emergency you can actually respond, and your sleep should be actually interrupted here. So here this is something you are causing highly skilled and less skilled. I told you that the second muscle is muscles of facial expression, muscles of face, I am writing it MF. These are two big groups, unskilled big groups, you say, the less skilled. But the third muscle, the third group actually, group of the one muscle only, I am writing it with the green, that is called the stylopharyngeus muscle. Stylopharyngeus muscle. This muscle going to the pharynx, very important, that lifts the pharynx here. Then third is this, then is the fourth group. These are called the muscles of pharynx, I am writing it MPH. Muscles of the pharynx, a very big group including the muscles of soft palate, etc. And then fifth group is in human being it is not present, straight sixth group. So you can actually remove this, you take the muscles of larynx. I am writing it MLR. This is called the muscles of larynx. We have 6 groups, but numerically they are, you know that is already 5. And these are the 6 groups which are less skilled group. Our purely motor nerves don't supply them. So our purely motor, why our purely motors are supplying the highly skilled? Obviously, even the nerve is being designed to be purely motor. To some extent you can say very purely motor. The muscle must be at least highly skilled. And highly skilled means, say, if you are actually asking some consultant, are you actually asking or inviting some consultant coming from, for example, USA, he must be for a very specific, highly specific topic, a very specific, hot topic or something actually about which he has the maximum expertise. So here the nerve in fact will be the purely motor, and this purely motor will be obviously to the highly skilled muscles. And these highly skilled muscles, they must be present in your face in the organs which are highly specialized for that function, for some functions, highly specialized function. Motor function obviously, highly specialized, and for this purpose one already I have told you that is the tongue, for the speech purpose. And another highly specialized organ whose movements are very, very precise, these are the eyeballs. You say eyeballs are moving up and down, lateral, medial, what skill is required here? Actually, skill is not that the one eyeball is moving. When the one eyeball is moving, other is also moving in conjugation, not identical all the time. Sometimes even the contrast movements will be there, but they must move simultaneously. Just like in the, you see that, just like in the drill, you see that your soldiers are moving when they are actually bringing their arm in front here, all they are bringing in front. Just making in front, I can do this also. I am not a soldier, I can do this easy. But when we are hundreds of them, you see that hundreds of our companions are there, hundreds of our comrades are doing straight up here with the same time simultaneously. This is a skill. This needs a lot of practice, a lot of skill. When you are actually looking laterally, you see that when I am looking laterally, like this laterally, my laterally means when I am looking actually I am gazing rightward here. My right eye is moving away from midline, that means it is actually doing abduction, but simultaneously my other eye, that is actually my left eye, should move medially, so it is doing adduction. Nerve of your same sided eye will be separate, and the nerve of your opposite sided eye should be separate, and it is separate obviously. And they both are moving together, so they are having a conjugated movements here. They need skill. For this purpose, the muscles which are moving your eyeballs, they are highly skilled as the muscles of the tongue can be. Believe me that they have been offered more nerves than the tongue is offered. Tongue is offered just one, and they are offered 3 out of your 12 cranial nerves are just for your extraocular muscles here. 3 out of 4. So 25% of your stock of the nerves have been offered to the motor activity of your eyeball only. And for sensory activity for the vision, one more means 4 nerves. And when you have got the general senses here, touch, temperature, etc. here, another nerve, fifth nerve, first component is ophthalmic has been given to this. As if it is not alone, I said it is not enough. You need actually another nerve. For which purpose? For lacrimation purpose. Another nerve is required there. The 7th nerve is actually here. You can imagine that out of 12 nerves, half the nerves are in fact been in the service of the eyeball here. Means out of your 12 pairs of cranial nerves, out of your 12 nerves on one side, you see that 6 just for the eyeball. Not all 6 obviously, the 5th it is one component, 7th not all obviously, some part of it, but very, very important for lacrimation. So these are the nerves in fact, and to some extent even your 8th nerve also, having to do with the eyeballs, and not 9th and 10th obviously, not 12th and 11th as well. and surely not the olfactory, but almost all the nerves. Means not olfactory, not 9 and 10, 11 and 12, not last 4, not olfactory. If you remove olfactory and remove the last 4 which come from medulla oblongata, I tell you, remaining all the nerves, directly or indirectly, almost all directly, completely or incompletely, they are just serving the eyeball. Obviously, some including your eyelids also, some lacrimal gland, etc., but they are related to the eye chapter. And not only this only, you have even your sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system is also playing their role. Why not our share also? Okay, sympathetic share, okay. Out of these, because we have here parasympathetic, but secretion is there. So facial supplies that secretion to the lacrimal glands, but facial at that time must be carrying some parasympathetic fibers. At the same time, we have lot of muscles. We have just not these extraocular muscles, we have smooth muscles also. And out of these 4 smooth muscles related to your eyeball and eyelid, levator palpebris superior, Muller's muscle, you see 10% levator palpebris superior is sympathetic, I say it is involuntary, that will be supplied by sympathetic. Iris has 2 muscles, constrictor pupillae, this is called sphincter pupillae, and dilator pupillae. Dilator pupillae will be supplied by sympathetic, constrictor pupillae or sphincter pupillae will be supplied by parasympathetic, and inside we have one more muscle, that is the ciliary muscle, again by parasympathetic. So out of these 4 muscles, ciliary, sphincter pupillae, dilator pupillae and levator palpebris superior is Muller's muscle. Out of these 4 muscles, 2 by sympathetic, 2 by parasympathetic, and you will calculate by yourself in emergency which 2 muscles you require. That is why sympathetic, remaining 2 for parasympathetic. Which 2 muscles you require for emergency? When you need more light. When you need more light, what you have to do? You have to elevate your upper eyelid extra 10%. Otherwise, you voluntarily can elevate, okay, by the levator palpebris superior, you can elevate it, okay, but extra 10%, Muller muscle, so voluntary, that will be sympathetic. And then to actually put more light in your eyes, so you have to contract your dilator pupillae so that the pupil should be actually dilated here. So more light should enter inside because emergency needs more light. So dilator pupillae and levator palpebris superior is Muller's portion, that 2 will be sympathetic, remaining 2 will be parasympathetic. And these both are rounded muscles, you see that. Sphincter pupillae, rounded like a sphincter, and ciliary itself, ciliary means what? Round. It's called the ciliary muscle. So both will be parasympathetic. They are here. So that means these highly skilled muscles. Out of these highly skilled muscles, if you see your say for your extraocular muscles, we have 6 extraocular muscles and 1 levator palpebris superior is obviously bigger voluntary portion. Lifting your eyelid, when you are actually after sleep, you are wake up here, you just lift your eyelid. This is levator palpebris superior voluntary portion. Gentle elevation of your upper eyelid. 1 this muscle and 6 extraocular muscles. And 6 extraocular muscles, out of these 6 extraocular muscles, when you see extraocular muscles, out of this 4 muscles are straight muscles here. Upward straight, you say superior rectus. Lower straight, you say inferior rectus. This is nose, here see this is called medial rectus. This is called lateral rectus. 4 are recti and 2 are obliques. 1 which is actually you can bring it from above and 1 you can bring it from below. This is called inferior oblique and this one is called superior oblique. Superior oblique is very tricky muscle. We will tell you how. This is now inferior oblique and this is called superior oblique. Not only this, but at the same time we have the 7th muscle, which is not extraocular obviously, which is actually upper eyelid muscle, that is called levator palpebris superioris. These are 7 muscles which are highly skilled as far as your eyeball is concerned, and next highly skilled group, you know, that is the group related to the tongue muscles. These are, I told you that these are skilled muscles. For the skilled, highly controlled organs here. For this purpose you need skilled muscles, for this purpose you need highly skilled as specialized nerves which are purely motor nerves, and we are actually looking at these purely motor nerves for this purpose. Now, if you will actually look at this, come to your extraocular muscles. When you are, you see this eye, when you are actually wants right eye to look right side like this, means right eye in fact will move in such a way that the cornea will look laterally away from nose, means not towards the midline, away from midline. If it's away from midline, then this action will be done here by the lateral rectus muscle obviously. So, lateral rectus muscle is functionally an abducting muscle. When it is an abducting muscle, so nature has provided here a nerve that is the abducting nerve. So, lateral rectus is supplied here by a nerve that should be called as the abducting nerve. Though the muscle is abducting, but at the order of the nerve here. That is why this muscle's name is the lateral rectus, but the nerve supplying this lateral rectus is the abducens nerve. We call them abducent nerve. This is the sixth cranial nerve. So, you can say sixth cranial nerve, you can say this 6. On the other side 6 also. This is nose. This is moving towards the nose or away from nose. This 6 is doing what? Away from nose. That means away from nose means which muscle is moving it away from nose? This is called the lateral rectus. A lateral rectus will be which action? Abducent. And abducent is doing which nerve? You see the figure is this, the 6th nerve. This is 6th nerve. So, that means the first purely motor nerve is, okay, here in our discussion is the 6th nerve. Means first purely motor nerve is this one. You can say, okay, 6th nerve is the first purely motor. So, out of these purely motor nerves, one is the 6th. We call them abducent nerve. This is 6th cranial nerve. So, it is a purely motor nerve which you actually be watching here. Number 1 purely motor, and very purely motor, does not contain any other motor fibers. Any other means not just other voluntary, no other involuntary also. If some nerve is containing voluntary as well as involuntary also, still you will call them purely motor if they do not contain sensory fibers. Because just mixing 2 types of motor fibers, because one nerve can carry even 2 types of motor fibers also. All your spinal which I am telling you here have got the sensory fibers, motor fibers, but they are generally, they are the fibers which are under your control. They contain even involuntary fibers also. This is your third component. These are called this involuntary fibers also. And not in your say in your sensory, they are just blue color which I have actually shown you. These are the blue color which are actually coming from your surface, from your skin. These are somatic fibers. They are not containing just somatic. They are containing from visceral point of view, sensory point of view, visceral fibers also. Means in one your typical nerve, you usually contain sensory and motor, but they are not just sensory motor. Sensory motor, until now you have been doing sensory motor, but they are all motor means voluntary that you know in limbs. And sensory means which are actually bringing your cutaneous innervation. You have been doing this, but your spinal nerves which have been running in your lower limb etc., they are not containing these 2 types of fiber. They are containing 2 more types of fibers also. One more motor, one more sensory. And this time the motor is involuntary motor. This is called the visceral motor. Involuntary motor's other name is a visceral motor. And as far as your sensory fibers are concerned, they do not contain just a somatic sensory, they contain visceral sensory also. So, even any nerve which you have seen until now in your limbs or any part of your other body, spinal nerves, they are not containing 2 types of fibers, sensory motor, you will go home. No, come back here. These sensory motor were basically somatic motor and somatic sensory. They contain visceral motor and visceral sensory also. You have to make their connections as well. But here when you are actually bringing here the abducent, it contains which type of a motor? Voluntary motor. Will it contain involuntary motor? Had it contained involuntary motor, still I will call it the purely motor. But because it does not contain any other motor fiber, not involuntary, just voluntary only, from one origin, we see that just voluntary only, never sensory, even not other motor also, not even visceral motor also, means not involuntary also. That is why you can call it as a very purely motor, but we do not call it very purely motor, we call just it purely motor. So, number 1 purely motor nerve is abducent. Why? Because it is supplying here highly skilled muscles of eyeball, either eyeball or tongue, but here eyeball. Which eyeball muscles here? 6 extraocular muscles, 1 eyelid muscle we have. So, we have In recti, we have got the 4 recti, 2 obliques, 1 levator, and out of these recti, 1 rectus it will supply, 1 nerve, 1 muscle. Can you imagine? That muscle is very small muscle. For 1 small muscle out of 12 cranial nerves, a single big cranial nerve has been offered innervation to just cranial. They are made for each other. It will not supply any other structure except lateral rectus. And when it will supply lateral rectus, it will never supply other muscles. It will never have any involuntary fibers on it, never sensory at all. Can't imagine the speciality of this nerve. It's not just this nerve, more are coming, because not only this, but bring now 2 obliques. You have seen in the eye, there are 6 extraocular muscles. Out of this, the one muscle which is very, very important, which is in fact takes origin from the roof of your orbit, and instead of instead of going to the eyeball sclera to move it, it goes to the medial side of your orbit here. Medial side of the orbit is the bone here. Why it is going to the bone? You don't have to move the bone. Actually, on the medial side of the eye, we have got here a kind of syringe, you can say. Syringe means it will have actually a kind of a ring, you can say, like that, the ring. This will go through the ring and change the direction. It will be held by the ring, so that it should actually change the direction like here. And this ring is inserted here onto the periosteum. It is actually the extension of the periosteum of your lacrimal bone, etc. So it passes through that, and such type of a pulleys, this is a kind of pulley. And pulley, you know that already is called, in anatomy, the pulleys, these are called the trochlea. You have seen here pulley like a medial condyle of the humerus, its name is trochlea. You have seen on the calcaneum lateral side where a pulley like a support is to the peroneus longus and brevis, you call them peroneal trochlea. And I think 1 or 2 more things about the trochlea word has been used at certain places, and here its name is simply not orbital trochlea, we call it trochlea because this is more famous. This is called the trochlea. So this muscle, superior oblique, passes through the trochlea to now be inserted onto the superior surface of your eyeball sclera. Okay, this time we don't have any objection. So it will go here to be inserted there. So superior oblique is important because it passes through the trochlea. Such an important anatomically designed muscle will actually be supplied by here a specific single nerve, which is in fact for the superior oblique. They are again made for each other. And that muscle, I say, this is the muscle which passes through trochlea. That's why the nerve which is actually supplying the muscle passing through trochlea has been named as the trochlear nerve. Nerve is not passing through trochlea, but the nerve is supplying the muscle passing through the trochlea. That's why we call them the trochlear nerve. This is your 4th cranial nerve, trochlear nerve. Here I can't actually make some funny resemblance here, but at least you say the trochlear nerve, at least one nerve you can remember without any clue. But you see, this is called now the trochlear nerve. So we call them is the trochlear nerve. So the 4th cranial nerve is called the trochlear nerve. Trochlear. This is now your 4th cranial nerve. This is 2nd purely motor. You can call it very purely motor nerve. 2nd nerve, which is supplying the extraocular muscles made for each other. You see that is kind of a thing. Superior oblique, trochlear. No other motor. No other voluntary motor, never involuntary, and no sensory at all. Forget about the sensory because it is a purely motor, a very purely motor. So what remains now? 2 recti are still remaining, superior rectus, inferior rectus, medial rectus. 1 oblique is still remaining, inferior oblique, and obviously levator palpebrae superioris is also remaining. All these 5 muscles, the remaining recti, remaining obliques, obviously 1 only. And whatever we haven't counted in fact until now, that is the levator palpebrae superioris, you see almost 90% voluntary portion, voluntary, not molar, voluntary portion. All of them will be supplied by the next single cranial nerve. At that next single cranial nerve, it actually deserves to be called as the mover of the eyeball. Actually, they are also moving the eyeball. They are also moving the eyeball. They are also the mover of the eyeball. But that will have more, you see, deserving most because it is moving most of other eyeball muscles here. That's why this is the leader. You call it the mover of the eyeball. You can call it the motor of the eyeball. You can call it the motor of the ocular. Ocular is related to the eyeball. You can call it the oculomotor. and that is called the oculomotor, and it is the third cranial nerve. And you can say oculomotor, you can make it the three like this, like eyebrows. So related to three. So three, so you see moving your eyeball. So you call it what? Oculomotor. Oculomotor is the third cranial nerve. So third cranial nerve is the oculomotor nerve. So you can say the third cranial nerve. This is the third cranial nerve. This is called the oculomotor nerve. This is third cranial nerve. This is again purely motor. But it's not made for each other kind of a thing here, because it is supplying, you know that it has 5 muscles to supply. And if it is 5 muscles to supply, okay, 5 muscles, voluntary action, no other sensory. So can we call it very purely motor? Actually, this is the only nerve probably here which is purely motor, but we can't call it very purely motor. Though very purely motor is not a phrase, but you see here you can't call it. In sensory, you can call them all of these 3 very purely sensory. Here up to 4th and 6th. And when the next nerve, 4th nerve, which will be purely motor also, that will also be called a very purely motor, but only 3rd will not be called the purely motor. We call it purely motor, but not very purely motor. You say, what is the difference in the purely motor and very purely motor? Actually, very purely motor means it contains only one type of motor fibers. This is the only nerve among the purely motors which cannot be called as the very purely motor. The reason is that because it is not just containing voluntary fibers, this is containing involuntary fibers also. This is the only purely motor nerve which contains involuntary fibers. You can make a question like this here. All of the following nerves, all of these following nerves contain just voluntary fibers, except which one of the following nerves contains along with the involuntary fibers also. The purely motor nerves do not contain involuntary fibers, only this contains. That is why the confusion creates that this nerve contains, because voluntary fibers also mixed with the involuntary fibers also. Can we call it mixed? Actually, in physicians and clinicians call them a mixed nerve. Why they call them mixed nerve? Because the both type of fibers are mixed. Actually, from our side, mixed nerves are not. The definition of mixed nerves is not this. Definition of mixed nerve is that nerve which contains sensory and motor both, not the 2 types of motor both. If a school is actually having the adult girls and baby girls also, we not say it is a co-education, because they both have the babies and adult, you say babies and girls, they both are mixed. That's why we call them mixed. No, this is not mixed. This is purely motor, a purely sensory. You can say this is a purely girls school. Here the primary, you see KG girls and surely the inter-science girls, they both are actually studying here in the same school. We do not call it mixed here. The young girls and little older girls, they are actually together. You call it now mixed. No, it's not mixed. Mixed will be when the boys will be there also. So here we have just the motor, sensory, I say voluntary motor and involuntary motor here. Probably, I think here, to actually do away with the confusion of being mixed or what, the people of anatomy has given this nerve as the name oculomotor. The motor word has been put on it now. This is probably the only nerve in the planet, you see on the planet, which has the name designed in such a way that you should look from distance, it is a motor nerve. That's why its name is motor. It's obviously oculo, so you call the oculomotor. No nerve you see that is having, even the purely motor nerves, we don't have any, in abducent we don't call it abducent motor, because we don't have any confusion. Here there is a confusion, because people think it is a mixed nerve, people call it as a mixed nerve. That's why to actually do away with the confusion, to actually rectify them, we ask them, okay, it is oculomotor. At least when the label is motor, nobody will ask, nobody will actually call it the mixed nerve here, but still people call it a mixed nerve. But not the anatomy people, usually the clinicians say, even in physiology it is written, it is a mixed nerve. But from anatomy point of view, it is a purely motor. I am actually discussing this nerve in a purely motor group. Though I am not calling it as a very purely motor, but very purely motor is not a phrase. Actually, the phrase which we have projected here is not actually a phrase here. So this is now the 3 nerves in fact being. So involuntary motor, for example, if the involuntary motor fibers are also on it, That we will discuss later, but involuntary forward function, that will function also for the eyeball. And eyeball, you know that in the entire your head and neck, there are 4 smooth muscles, 2 for sympathetic control, 2 for parasympathetic, and all are 4, they are lying in the eyeball. And out of this, the 2 which are having a parasympathetic supply will be through the oculomotor, because oculomotor doesn't carry sympathetic fibers, it carries parasympathetic fibers. For both obviously what? Ciliary and constrictor or sphincter pupillae. So that will also supply that, but it is not a purely, I say very purely, but still it is purely motor. What about now the next group of skilled muscles? I told you the muscles of the tongue. For the muscles of the tongue, all the muscles, whether the muscle substance itself, intrinsic musculature, or the muscles which in fact moving the tongue here outward, inward, sideways, roll back, everything. These are called the extrinsic muscles. All of them except one that we will tell you later. They are supplied by here a single nerve that should actually give them the supply and will control them for all actions. Yes, for just general actions of moving the tongue here and there, for rolling your food here and there, and for a speech purpose also. Nerve is same. Control is different, but nerve is same. When you are doing it for the basic movements here, for rolling your food here and there, control is coming from the brain from separate center. But when you are making it for the speech purpose, nerve is same, everything is same, but the control from above, utilization of this nerve this time is from separate center. Because this time a very important sacred action and highly skilled action the human being is going to perform. But the nerve is same, muscle same, everything same, but the order is different, utilization is different. And when the utilization is different at that time, the basic action will be stopped here, because when you are making some speech here, you are not rolling the food at that time. Maybe you are intricating, but that's why they said that when you are speaking, do not eat, and when you are eating, don't speak, so that the one action can be performed specifically. You see that, like your pharynx, you are doing it for breathing as well as swallowing. When you swallow, you stop breathing, and when you are breathing, you don't swallow. You see, you swallow your saliva, you see the breathing will stop, nose, everything will stop, larynx will stop, everything will stop, just the mouth, pharynx and esophagus will be used, because temporarily it will be stopped. So here same also, and that muscle, I say that muscle group should be supplied here by one nerve, and that nerve is actually among all your cranial nerves, that is the lowest nerve, the nerve which is the lowest in the level, you can say hypo nerve, that should supply the tongue. And this doesn't supply any other structure except tongue musculature. That's why it is again purely motor, but highly purely, very purely motor, but doesn't contain any other thing except it will supply the voluntary musculature of your tongue here for a speech purpose and for other purposes also. Why we make this highly purely motor, very purely motor? The reason is that because we are making speech also, for other actions also, but speech also. That's why we call them a purely motor nerve. A purely motor nerve is the nerve that is the hypo, that is the last, that is the 12th, and it is because it is supplying the tongue, and tongue is actually, they have used the word for the tongue is the gloss, G-L-O-S-S, like you see glossopharyngeal, and this time it is the hypo nerve that supplies the gloss. That's why its name is hypoglossal nerve. So 3, 4 and 6, and now it is the 12th, it is called the hypoglossal nerve. Hypoglossal nerve, and this is the 12th cranial nerve that supplies the tongue, all the musculature of the tongue except one, palatoglossus, that is called. This muscle is called the palatoglossus. But do you do that when you are doing the tongue? So this is what we call here the 3, 4 and 6 and 12. These are the 4 nerves which in fact are purely motor nerves here. So why purely motor you call them? The reason is that because they are supplying the highly skilled muscles for highly skilled organs, obviously, for the tongue and for the eyeball. Eyeball we have got 7 muscles, 1 LPS, and then we have got 4 recti, 2 obliques. Out of the recti, 1 rectus, lateral rectus is by the 6th nerve, so 1 purely motor. Then second was for the trochlea, that passes through the trochlea, superior oblique, so trochlear nerve, nerve number 4, second nerve. And then remaining all others including 3 recti, 1 oblique and 1 LPS, this is all together is called the oculomotor, so 3rd purely motor nerve, so 3 for the eyeball, and another come here, the 2nd highly skilled organ is the tongue, and for the tongue it is called hypoglossal nerve, so this is the 12th nerve. So you can say it will be 3rd, then is the 4th, then is the 6th, and then now is the 12th. All these nerves together is called the purely motor nerves here. The third group, this is called purely motor, and there is a third group, this is called the mixed nerve now. As far the mixed nerves are concerned, you will say, sir, okay, purely motor nerves are 3, 4 and 6 and 12, already they 4 you are on the board. For purely sensory nerves, already you have seen for the special senses, out of special senses one was there for the smell, 2 was for the vision, and another for the ear, it was 8. Means these are purely sensory, and these nerves are purely motor. One is additional, that is the 11th nerve. You count in the middle, whatever nerve is actually coming, that should be called as the mixed nerve. Like 1 is there, 2 is there, 3 is there, 4 is there, 5 is not there, so 5 should be mixed. 6 there, 7 not there, so it should be mixed. 8 is there, 9 is not there, 9 is mixed. 10 is not there, 10 is mixed. 11 is there, 12 is there, so these must be mixed nerves. But this is not the answer. You cannot actually say, sir, okay, I am counting purely sensory, I am counting purely motor, 11 I will put in the middle. The rest of the nerves you count by yourself, they are mixed, sir. No, you have to actually say the mixed nerves are, you should say what is commonness in this group. You see, commonness in the group is, why they are under the same umbrella purely sensory? Because they are supplying the special senses. Why they are actually purely motor? Because they are supplying the skilled, highly skilled muscles and the highly skilled organs. And you know that you can actually answer highly skilled organs means highly skilled muscle to highly skilled organs means the tongue and the eyeball. Extraocular muscles of eyeball, you can count the nerves. Tongue, you can count the nerves. Gloss, hypoglossal. Purely sensory, special senses. You know that olfaction, optic, vestibular cochlear. That's why you can count easily. For the mixed again the nerves you should count here. Not like here the deficiencies you fill in the blanks and now you see these nerves will be there. Very easy. But if straight away anybody asks you what are the mixed nerves, that means you will first count the sensory, then the motor, and the last you will give your answer. No, you will go through whatever the question has been asked. What are the purely, what are the mixed nerves? Which contain sensory, motor, both type of fibers. Actually these are those muscles. These are those nerves. Very easy, I am giving you the clue. These are those nerves which supply less skilled muscles. You see, sir, if they were supplying less skilled muscles, they will be again purely motor. No, when they are going to the less skilled muscles, they are motor obviously, but on their shoulders, there are sensory fibers also. And I will tell you later what type of a sensory and what type of a motor, but at least these motor must be present on their shoulders. If you will count these fibers and you know that these muscles, less skilled muscles, this is a less skilled. Why they are less skilled? The reason is that because they do not develop from somites. Highly skilled muscles are those which develop from either the somites or they develop from the somatic plate, somatic lateral plate. Lateral plate is the visceral and somatic both. These are the muscles which are, you know that they are highly skilled. So the tongue and the eyeball muscles, they are basically somatic. That's why they are highly skilled. But these less skilled muscles, they do not develop from somites or they do not develop from the somatic plates. They develop basically from mesenchyme. Mesenchyme of what? Mesenchyme of, if you remember, in head and neck development, mesenchyme of pharyngeal arches. These are those muscles which develop from pharyngeal arches. So any muscles which develop from pharyngeal arches, if any nerve supplies these arches, muscles of these arches, they must be mixed. Because when they will enter into the arches, they don't have to supply the muscles which develop from the arches, but they have to supply the sensory organs also, a sensory tissue which is present there. So it has to be mixed. Because if you enter into the world of pharyngeal arches, you have to be mixed. And when you go there, every pharyngeal arch will offer you here a set of muscles. You see, set of muscles. When you are going to the first pharyngeal arch, set of muscles to that nerve will be offered muscles of mastication. So that nerve will have to supply all the muscles of mastication and remaining other muscles which are present in the first pharyngeal arch. And muscles of mastication means what? What you are moving in the mastication? Mandible. So it must be mandibular nerve. Mandibular nerve is not a nerve, it is one of the divisions of which nerve? Trigeminal nerve. That is why muscles of mastication, which nerve? Muscles of mastication will be your trigeminal nerve. So first mixed nerve will be your fifth nerve, trigeminal. You see fifth. This is because of it, not because you have remembered the fill in the blanks fifth here, fill in the blank. No. First pharyngeal arch muscles of mastication. That is why it is mandibular, that is why it is trigeminal. Second pharyngeal arch, you know that big muscle group, muscles of facial expression. So nerve which will be, when you enter here into the mesenchyme, you have to supply many sensory organs, but at the same time muscles group will be offered to you, okay, supply them also. Which muscles? Muscles of the facial expression. So which nerve will come to your mind? Seventh nerve. So muscle of mastication or muscles of facial expression, seventh nerve, you see, seventh nerve. Not remembering, okay, cramming seventh nerve after fifth. You see second pharyngeal arch, facial muscles, that is why facial. And then you are coming into the third pharyngeal arch, just one muscle will be offered to you, that is stylopharyngeus, because it is going to the pharynx. So the nerve's name is something pharyngeal. Or that nerve is not just pharyngeal, that is glossal also, that is why it is combined, you call them glossopharyngeal. Stylopharyngeus will be supplied by glossopharyngeal. You see it is the ninth cranial nerve, is the glossopharyngeal nerve. Means stylopharyngeus nerve because it is the third third pharyngeal arch. So ninth nerve is there, you see ninth. What is remaining? How many arches are remaining? Fourth and sixth is remaining. And fourth is the pharyngeal muscles, sixth is the laryngeal muscles. So down only one nerve can go, and that is the 10th cranial nerve. That means to the pharyngeal as well as to the laryngeal muscles, only one cranial nerve can go, and that is the 10th nerve. So this is the 10th nerve. So if you are going to the pharyngeal arches to supply the muscles of the pharyngeal arches, you are bound to supply the sensory organs which will be offered in those pharyngeal arches also. That is why you have to be mixed here. So if you want to actually locate your mixed nerves, go to the pharyngeal arches and watch out their muscles here, and you will be able to easily answer what are the mixed nerves here. Understand? So by now these things you have done here, and if you are actually looking at your mixed nerves, I told you that they are 5, 7, 9 and 10, 4 nerves. When you are looking at your purely motor nerves, they are 3, 4, 6 and 12, again 4. But when you are going to the sensory, they are not 4, they are 3. So 4 plus 4 plus 3, they are 11. So still one nerve is remaining, and that nerve will be having actually a separate group. Not a group actually, this is a separate, out of my group. It is not actually, it is my servant, but it is not my family member. I am actually serving it as I am serving my family members, but it is not my family member. He eats from my kitchen, everything here, I clothe him, everything is here, but you see, he is not my family member. And that nerve is called the additional nerve. This is additional, and add-on nerve, you see it among these 11. That is called the accessory nerve, and that accessory nerve is actually, in number it is the 11th nerve. You say, so why number is the 11th nerve? It should have been the 12th, because not your family member. Your family member is outside, now it is in. Actually, this 11th nerve basically is the servant, or you can say the service, it is giving the service to the 10th nerve. Because 11th nerve basically is the servant or the assistant or the adjunct of 10th nerve. So this 11th nerve I cannot actually put it at the number 12, because she is the servant of the 10th. So servant of the 10th should be actually lying by the side of the 10th. That is why it is 11th. Otherwise it would have been even 12th. Up to 11 it should have been my hypoglossal, because my family members finish at the 11th. But the one which is my servant is not my family member, it should be 12th. Why it is 11th? The reason is that because 11th, it has to be given the number 11, because it is giving the service to carry many of the fibers of the 10th. Otherwise, this 11th nerve, which would not have been 11th, basically this nerve is a spinal nerve, which has come from the spinal cord to carry on his shoulders most of the fibers of the 10th. So it is actually giving the service to the 10th. That is why I am giving him, giving this nerve the number 11. And 11th is the additional nerve, is not my family member basically. So it is not among the purely sensory or purely motor, though it is motor, because it is carrying the fibers of the 10th. But which fibers of the 10th? All the motor fibers of the 10th. And herself, she was also motor. So she can be called as a purely motor nerves, but still I will bring it outside here. But if you want to count actually among these 3, 4, 6 and 12, 11 also, you can do it. In books it is written all these 5 are the purely motor nerves, but this purely motor is different from those 4 purely motor. That's why I am making actually some addition. That's why its name is additional. Its name is add-on nerve, which is called the accessory nerve. Accessory, but you will, when you will study this nerve, probably you might actually change its name to not the accessory, you can call it even the necessary nerve. That's a very important nerve because it carries very important fibers of the 10th nerve, the vagus nerve. Vagus nerve is half of voluntary fibers. Almost all of the voluntary fibers of the vagus actually are carried on the shoulders of this accessory nerve. That's why the accessory has to come from the spinal cord to give service to your 10th nerve so that its fibers can be safely dispatched out of the cranial cavity to the neck side here. Because pharynx and larynx, very important muscles are to be supplied here by the vagus nerve, by the fibers which are in fact initially carried by this accessory nerve. And accessory basically is not a cranial, it is actually the spinal nerve. It has to travel a long way from spinal cord to the cranial cavity to carry these fibers here. If vagus had carried its own fibers safely, I think accessory nerve is not required. Understand? So this is what we call here the accessory, and these nerves these are purely sensory, purely motor, these groups, how you will call them, why these are purely motor, purely sensory and mixed, and which way you can actually remember them here. Don't just call or you say remember the names or say numbers by heart here, don't have to. You see why they are mixed, why they are sensory purely, why they are purely motor, why we call them very purely sensory, very purely motor. What is the concept behind that? Why the nerves have been actually given this protocol here. Now these are certain important basics about these nerves here. Then you will actually be picking up here these nerves, each of them together, you see that. But these nerves are there, and some more facts about these nerves we are going to see to get more concept about these nerves before we will enter and pick up number 1, number 2 and number 8 nerve here. Because we will actually discuss not number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 like here. We will discuss the purely sensory nerves separately, purely motor nerves separately. I will tell you how to handle these nerves here. All these nerves will be actually discussed under same headings, almost a dozen of headings, you see that. You can make a table here, but you don't make the tables here. Tables I don't like usually, but you see that you make some explanation, you say, write something here. Write whatever you see in your words, okay. Don't see the books here, you see the bookish knowledge here, you see the bookish words here, you don't feel yourself confined in the pattern of the books here, just have the concept.